Fox 32 Chicago Sports. This is Chicago Sports Tonight.
There will be no Chiefs three-peat. The Eagles made sure of that. Halftime, Philadelphia had more points than Kansas City, had net passing yards, and the Birds did not let up, flying by the Chiefs 40-22. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Chicago Sports Tonight. I'm Lou Canellis. Cassie Carlson's alongside. Also in the house, the Score's morning show host, David Haugh, who can also be seen on CHSN, Chicago Sports Network, and the Score's afternoon drive host, Matt Spiegel, alongside as well. All right, before we get to the Bears and what they need to do to reach the Super Bowl, let's talk about tonight's Super Bowl 59, the matchup we just saw right here on Fox between the Chiefs and Eagles. Boy, Philadelphia was averaging 35 points a game in the postseason leading up to the Super Bowl, and they carried it right into the big game and made it look easy.
Yeah, I mean, I actually picked the Chiefs to win in this game because I wasn't going to bet against Patrick Mahomes going for a three-peat. And I made a comment to you, David. I said when he walked out onto the field for pregame warm-ups, I thought he looked exhausted and he didn't play like himself, but credit the Eagles defense and that front four that just wreaked havoc on him. 6 sacks. He never felt really comfortable out there, and I was impressed by the Eagles showing.
The Eagles did what we didn't think was possible. Patrick Mahomes looked rattled all game long. He lost his poise. He lost control. And I don't know that they ever had a chance. Stunning domination by Vic Fangio. We know what he can do. He was here in Chicago. In 2018, I think he felt like he had a Super Bowl defense. That's what a Super Bowl defense looks like tonight because he had the offense, Jalen Hurts, and I think you feel good for Vic, and the Eagles left no doubt.
The Eagles' Howie Roseman is the best general manager in all of team sports. Went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago when Jalen Hurts was making $2 million. Wins the Super Bowl this year when Jalen Hurts is making $51 million. Rebuilt the interior of both the defensive line and the offensive line. This roster is stacked, and a great, great night for Hurts, who gets MVP and deserves it.
Is it crazy for me to say that Vic Fangio, and I know that we need to give it to a player, it's the most valuable player. I thought Vic Fangio was the MVP in this game.
You can say that, and you're not wrong because of what he meant and the difference he made. But Matt's onto it. Howie Roseman, this is the third roster, the iteration that he has brought to the Super Bowl, and because of that, Vic Fangio can look a lot smarter. You've got Jalen Carter. You've got Josh Sweat. You've got a lot of guys getting to the quarterback and getting to the ball in a bad mood. That's what you have is talent. When you have talent, you're going to look a lot smarter.
And we have to figure out what was going on with Mahomes because before the Eagles even got there, with all that abandon that the defensive line showed, Mahomes did look rattled. He looked tentative. He looked unsure. He was inaccurate twice to Kelsey early on. This was easily the worst I've ever seen Pat Mahomes play in a playoff.
But didn't you think it was the entire team? Because you were talking about that drop by DeAndre Hopkins early in the game. Just it didn't seem like they were all clicking on the same cylinder.
For whatever reason, they were out of sync. I think that happens when you have a pocket that collapses and you have an offense that doesn't move the chains as well as the Chiefs were able to. We talked about all the time, they would win if it were a one-score game. You don't want to bet against the Chiefs because you got Mahomes and you got Reed at the end of the game. The Eagles were like, we're not going to let you get that close. And they were just, they hit the Chiefs in the mouth and they never recovered.
And that's what I was going to say. Isn't that really what's telling here is that, hey, maybe the Chiefs just weren't as good as we thought they were because they won
I don't think so, Lou.
many one-possession games.
They're champions. They're champions. They earned all the respect that we gave them throughout Super Bowl week. But I think what we learned tonight more than anything, you build from the ball on out. The Eagles' defensive line dominated, and the Eagles' offensive line protected. And then Jalen Hurts did the rest.
The Chiefs were magic all year long with Mahomes doing it. 17 one-score games, and it's been absolutely incredible. But this Eagles team, since the bye, 10-1 since the bye with an incredible point differential and absolutely dominant physically in every phase, including their wide receivers. I mean, McDuffie, the all-pro corner, got beat up by A.J. Brown all night. This Eagles team is better, and I think we should have seen this coming even more.
I'm not saying this Chiefs run ends tonight, but will we remember the Chiefs as we look back about over this stretch that they just ran through? Are we going to remember the Chiefs like we did the Packers of the 60s, Steelers of the 70s, the Niners of the 80s, 90s, and the Patriots in 2000?
I think it depends on how they come back next season because you still have to give the respect to Patrick Mahomes, who's not even 30 yet, playing in his 5th Super Bowl in 7 seasons as a starter. When are we going to see that again? I don't know that we will in the next 10 years. So I think that it all depends on how they come back. But we were having this conversation that do they potentially lose a bunch of players? Does Travis Kelce retire? What does Andy Reid want to do since he didn't get that three-peat? Does he come back for one more season, see how it feels?
Great point. But I think we go back to, they did this part of the dynasty that in the making without Tyreek Hill. And when Tyreek Hill left, you thought, oh boy, what are they going to do now? And I think right now you feel like, what are they going to do now? Maybe Travis Kelce's gone. How much longer does Andy Reid really have? But still Patrick Mahomes. Lou, I think, yes, that's a good question to ask. But absolutely, I think the Chiefs aren't going anywhere.
Does this look like a roster that can pay $25 million to a guard asking for
Man,
the
I
Bears?
hope not. I hope not.
The Bears connection. Trey Smith, he'll be right at home on an offensive line that can't protect the quarterback.
Right, but I mean, the Chiefs got to build something, and I don't think they can pay a guard $25 million.
Boy, I hope they can. Speaking of the Bears, Ben Johnson hopes to play in the big game at some point during his Bears tenure. Where will he rank amongst the all-time great Bears coaches? Yeah, I'm already going to great Bears coaches. That's how much confidence I have in Ben Johnson. We'll discuss next. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski doing what they do best, hooking up at a Super Bowl. Look at this. This time on Bourbon Street, Brady still throwing darts to the big tight end during the Super Bowl pregame show here on Fox. This Bears discussion brought to you by Portillo's. It always sounds good. All right, I found this fascinating earlier today. Chiefs coach Andy Reid, who's won 301 total games, ranks fourth in NFL history, first amongst active NFL head coaches, reached 28 postseason wins, trails only Bill Belichick. Thursday, Reid was asked to name his biggest play-calling rivals. He started with Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. We saw what Vic did in the Super Bowl. By the way, Vic coaching in the NFL for 38 seasons. He mentioned former Patriots coach Bill Belichick, who's won 8 Super Bowls, 6 with the Patriots. And Reid said his third biggest play-calling rival, Bears' new head coach, Ben Johnson. Do you guys realize Johnson was born the same year that Fangio started coaching in the NFL? And as I look ahead to Ben Johnson, should I be this excited about what Ben Johnson's worth is to the Bears next season alone?
My answer is yes. Definitely, you should be excited. He is bright, he is articulate, and he's going to make an impact. I have to add, though, Andy Reid also was effusive in his praise of Matt Nagy, who he knew well. And when Matt Nagy came to the Bears to become the head coach, Andy Reid gave his stamp of approval. That's not against Andy Reid, but I was just as stunned as you were, Lou, when he mentioned those names, and then he said Ben Johnson. And that makes you excited in Chicago. The Bears may have gotten this one right.
I think it makes you excited, too, but I also think you have to look at what Ben Johnson was working with the Lions, and specifically it goes back to the trenches and having one of the best offensive lines to create that run game and then to allow him to be creative in some of the passing game concepts that he has out there. So I'm still excited. I think Ben Johnson was the right hire, but I don't know if it's going to be that we're going to have the Bears are going to have the #1 offense this year in his first year. I think it's still going to be building blocks.
Well, Andy Reid praises his own guys like Nagy and Doug Peterson and Eric Bieniemy and others, so it was interesting to hear this praise. But understand that Ben Johnson is as respected as play callers get in the NFL, other than Sean McVay and Andy Reid. I mean, you probably get to him third as an offensive play caller. We talked to Mike Martz the day that the hire was announced, and Mike Martz said Ben Johnson is as good as he has ever seen as a play caller. There's a rhythm and kind of an artistry to what Ben does, where all the multiple things look the same and all the same things can go a multitude of directions. It's absolutely beautiful. He does need the pieces, but there's every reason to have a lot of faith that this Bears offense is eventually going to look great.
And guys in the business know the difference between play callers and play collectors.
Yes.
And when you see guys who are successful cite Ben Johnson's ability to do that and keep defenses guessing, it does resonate a little bit louder, because this isn't Matt Nagy, with all due respect, who didn't call the plays in Kansas City before he came to Chicago. Ben Johnson earned his reputation by dazzling people in Detroit, and I think getting the respect of people like Andy Reid.
Not Matt Nagy, Mike Ditka. Should I be excited about Ben Johnson like I was Mike Ditka when George Halas made that hire back in 1982?
Yeah,
and I know I'm going way back, but I'm bringing up Ditka because Ditka won a Super Bowl in this town.
That's the last guy that you could really kind of wrap your heart around in that way, perhaps. I mean, Lovie was truly great as a culture builder and a culture protector, but Ditka had a hard edge that you want and that you dream of that they haven't had since. But I don't see the same level of football genius.
Yeah, you kind of yada past the Lovie Smith era. He was pretty good too, and he deserves, I think, the respect historically that he earned. But I will say this: with Ditka, it's a great memory. It's a great comp for one reason, but I think another, the Bears were tougher because of Mike Ditka. I think they're going to be smarter because of Ben Johnson. That's good in today's NFL because they're going to be able to move the chains, move the ball, score the points because they're going to be able to do this in a way where teams can't keep up.
Here's your Ditka parallel that matters. Ditka was the vision. It was his vision of what the football team was going to be. This appears to be Ben Johnson's vision of what a football team is going to be. And even Ryan Poles is going to fall in line with that. Not like he's going to let Ben make every decision, but Ben is the predominant football philosopher in the organization. And in the NFL, the head coach needs to be that. And they haven't had that since Ditka.
Let me jump in because I want you guys to hear Tom Thayer's vision for what the Bears will be under Ben Johnson.
I think you solidify the offense and defensive line. You get some components to help guys like Montez Sweat and Javon Dexter and Andrew Billings. And then you bring in a super competitive alpha male atmosphere on the offensive line. I think they're ready to go. And I think they proved it last year when they stayed in a lot of those division games to the very end. But to me, and I think if you look at the history of the Chicago Bears, it's always going to be about priority up front.
Thayer says it's all about the Bears rebuilding up front. Our NFC North discussion brought to you by your local Kia dealers. Visit kia.com to discover a movement that inspires you. Agree. It's all about what happens in the trenches.
Yeah, I think that's why the biggest question is what are they going to use with their first-round draft pick, and then who are they going to go after in free agency? We were making fun of Trey Smith being right at home.
How about their first round and their 2 second-round picks?
Right, because you can find someone in the second and third,
I want to see him go offensive line, all three.
But I think with Trey Smith, you know, we're laughing at this now that Patrick Mahomes was sacked 6 times in the Super Bowl, and Trey Smith hadn't given up a sack in all of regular season in 2024. And what are you going to have to pay him? But I do think Ryan Poles has learned from his past mistakes that you got to prioritize it now, because you can't keep going with the surrounding people with weapons, make the picks, make the right picks. But is it 3 new offensive linemen starting? Is it 4? Does he believe in Braxton Jones? I think that's still a big question.
It's a brand new middle 3 for sure.
Yes.
And then it might also be a new left tackle. We'll have to see. But free agency comes first. I don't love that about the NFL calendar. But
I do.
You do?
I
but
do.
It is what it is. Maybe it's Trey Smith. Maybe it's Mekhi Becton. Maybe it's the center Drew Dahlman from Atlanta. And then after that, I think 2 of those top 3 picks.
All those are upgrades. And I think that the one thing you alluded to, Matt, is that Ben Johnson makes Ryan Poles smarter as an evaluator, because what he's looking for as a head coach is more defined, it's more distinct and specific. And I don't think the Bears have had that at the head coaching position in a long time. And so when you're sitting there evaluating tape and making judgments on prospects, Ryan Poles is going to make better decisions because Ben Johnson is the one kind of making them for him.
Are we even sure that Matt Eberflus had an offensive philosophy?
No, because he couldn't answer any offensive questions the first 2 seasons.
So how do you know what to draft to give your head coach to play with?
Well, we're going to ask this question. Bears offense finished last in the NFL this past year, last in yards, 28th in points. How quickly can they turn it around? Can they turn it around in one season?
It's the NFL, Lou. I think you have to look at it that way. Ben Johnson is here not to waste time, not to waste anybody's money. You go out in free agency and you're aggressive and say it is Trey Smith, or you rebuild your offensive line. You've got the weaponry. You've got a young quarterback. You get another piece in the backfield. You're scoring points. And if you can score points in the NFL, you can turn things around in a year.
That's why he said.
He turned Jared Goff into an MVP candidate. I saw Goff sitting right there next to Josh Allen just a few nights ago. Can he do that with Caleb Williams?
Well, Caleb Williams needs coaching, period, because I don't know if he got any of that from last season being a rookie. So having someone, as Ben Johnson said, seeing it through the play caller's eyes, Caleb Williams needs to understand everything that he's seeing on the field. He needs to go through his reads a little bit faster. He needs to work on his footwork. I feel like he's starting over in his 2nd season, and while that's not ideal, I think he has the right person to help him.
He'll have a new offensive line, at least the interior, and have a new lead running back. I'll tell you that right now. It's not going to be DeAndre Swift as the lead running back. And whoever it is, they're going to solidify the run game and build from there.
Do you think it will? I think Swift has a role in this team, though. I do think he's going to play a role. You've got to be aggressive and open-minded, and whatever he wants, whether it's a guy who's more downhill in the draft. It's a very deep draft for running backs. Free agency is a little bit more tricky because you're paying DeAndre Swift a lot of money already.
DJ Moore and Roma Dunze were both at the Super Bowl politicking for the Bears to go out and sign Cooper Kupp, make a deal for Cooper Kupp. Is he the right guy in this offense?
I'd love
Are
Cooper
there enough
Kupp.
balls?
Too expensive, Lou.
Yeah.
Would you rather have Cooper Kupp or Keenan Allen?
I'd rather
back?
have Cooper Kupp. Oh, yeah. Keenan Allen is an injury waiting to happen. Cooper Kupp
might
he
be
is
too.
injured too. But I tell you, I would want the Cooper Kupp, right?
Neither. I don't want either.
I don't know if there are enough footballs.
I don't want to spend the assets or the money.
I want them to throw the football to Cole Kmet.
Here's the thing you want to look for. Those guys are probably not going to be realistic. Look for somebody in Ben Johnson's past, Tim Patrick, somebody from the Lions who might be cutting loose, a veteran who's savvy, who can tell other guys in that room what this offense is supposed to look like.
I don't like thinking that it had to be 3 wideouts. Go ahead, get a second tight end who matters. Get a running back who
Just
matters.
throw the ball to Cole Kmet. Coming up after a break, we go to the other side of the football. Will the Bears trade for Myles Garrett? Or how will Dennis Allen get the most out of this group? We're going to talk about the Bears defense right after this timeout.
Maybe not that long. You know, the Eagles, they made some changes with coaching, and boom, they became one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFC. And in a blink of an eye, a new direction, new leadership, it can have an amazing effect on a football team. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them.
You like what they're doing?
I love it. Caleb Williams and this young man, Ben Johnson, can do together. It could be quite special.
Hey, is Dan Hampton on to something? Could the Bears' new coaching staff accomplish the same turnaround that the Eagles just pulled off? Philadelphia was 4-11-1 during the 2021 season. Then Nick Sirianni took over. Eagles have gone to the playoffs all 4 years. Sirianni's been head coach. Twice he's taken them to the Super Bowl. They win Super Bowl 59 tonight. Our Bears defense segment brought to you by Comcast Business Mobile. It's the smarter way to save. David Haugh from The Score and CHSN, Matt Spiegel from The Score, Cassie Carlson alongside. All right, how important was the Dennis Allen hire?
I think it was vital because he has head coaching experience. Twice he's been a head coach. So going through what his downfalls, knowing and learning from them. He mentioned being a sounding board for Ben Johnson, and I think that's important for someone who's going to delegate a lot of his time to the offense. And he mentioned an offensive coordinator who can set the table early for his offense. Well, I think Dennis Allen can do the same for the defense, and Ben Johnson can be a facilitator in a lot of ways. It allows him to focus on his job.
You know that thing that fans love where the defensive line seems flooded with people and you don't know who's going to blitz from where, like Brian Flores does? Dennis Allen's really good at that. He's had really good defenses for a long time. He's a terrific defensive coordinator. I like that he's been a head coach, but I can't wait to see what he does defensively with this bunch. They need a little more help on that D-line specifically.
I like the continuity. The scheme will be a fit for guys whose talent and skill set fits this scheme that Dennis Allen will bring from New Orleans. I also think that I like the staff he put together, but let's be realistic here. As good as the scheme is and his background looks, tonight we saw another example. It takes talent up front. You get guys who can get to the quarterback and collapse a pocket, you're going to look a lot smarter if you're Dennis Allen. This is going to be a roster, not reconstruction, but retooling. You've got a couple guys on this defensive line. You got to get more out of Montez Sweat. Javon Dexter's got to be somebody who takes another step. The other side, I know Andrew Billings is coming back. Great. He needs to play that role. You need an edge rusher opposite Montez Sweat to get to the quarterback so you can be what the Eagles have become.
No team has had fewer sacks over the last 3 seasons than your Chicago
That's embarrassing.
Bears. Would you make a trade
That's
for Myles
embarrassing.
Garrett?
No.
Would you mortgage the future?
No. See, those are two different things, Lou. It's embarrassing they haven't gotten to the quarterback. But you're going to react and overreact to the Myles Garrett situation because you know what? That's a short-term solution to a long-range, you're taking a long-range approach.
What about Khalil Mack as a free agent?
Depends on the price. Myles Garrett, the problem with his is the price tag. You don't want to give up 2 first-round draft picks if that's what it's going to take. If Khalil Mack wants to come in here on a prove-it deal at the end of his career, yeah, come on down.
Yeah, Khalil Mack for some money, Dante Fowler who had a resurgence in Washington for some money, something like that. He's going to love, though, Dennis Allen's going to love Kyler Gordon. He brought him up already. That's his guy because the whole league is using nickels to a crazy amount. Dennis Allen hasn't, but he knows he needs to. Kyler Gordon's a very, very important guy.
He's going to
I
get a
thought
new
that was
contract.
important. I thought that was important that Kyler Gordon was the only player that Dennis Allen had singled out, knowing that he's up for a contract extension. So consistent, maybe they blitz a little bit more with him, and then that obviously helps this defense.
That tells me they need a pass rusher.
Yes, they do.
If your
Josh
first
Sweat?
guy is a nickel back, you need a pass rusher and a defensive tackle.
Cassie, Ryan Poles said, you know what? Roquan Smith, no. Tremaine Edmonds, yes.
That's a big question mark.
How do they get Tremaine Edmonds going?
I don't know the answer. He was like 2 steps behind on every single play this past year, and he's the 3rd highest paid linebacker. And then watching Roquan Smith go to Baltimore and be an All-Pro all 3
Fred
seasons.
Warner, I'm like, what are we doing? He's not even in the same
Fresh set of
category.
eyes. You got to take a fresh set of eyes to every player on that defense. And that includes your middle linebacker.
Tyreek Stevenson going to stick with this?
Yes, I do. I think Al Harris is
coordinator?
going to challenge him. There's a relationship there. Al Harris has got a good reputation for holding guys accountable, and Tyreek Stevenson needs Al Harris much more than I think Al Harris and the Bears need Tyreek Stevenson.
Anyone wish Jalen Carter was on this roster?
Yes, quite a bit. That looks
Instead
really
of
bad.
Darnell Wright?
Yes.
Of course. At this point,
Wouldn't have
and
made
I
a difference
understood it.
on
I
the
mean, it's
sack
easy to
numbers.
say. It's easy to say
It's easy to
now.
say.
I understood it then because you didn't feel like you had the culture, like you had your own Fletcher Cox to help young Jalen Carter along. But you look at this now, and that guy's been fine as a human and terrific as a player.
But he's been that way because of what the Eagles surrounded him with. You could make that argument. I hate the idea the Bears missed out on him, but going back, they made the right decision at the time. At the time, they did not have the infrastructure in their locker room or in their building for a guy like Jalen Carter, who was erratic too. I think he needed the Eagles.
I'm torn because we watched Jalen Carter doing an interview on Fox today. I said, wow, he sounds very mature, like he has a good
does.
head
He's a
on his
pregame
show. And I'm like, maybe the character stuff was out of question. The Bears have based a lot of draft picks and a lot of free agent decisions on character, and there's also been questionable. It's Chase Claypool and Nate Davis. Those are questionable character decisions that went the opposite way.
Back to Hamp's point at the top of the segment, and a point David made in segment 1. This happens in the NFL. The turnaround happens. You can go from what the Bears were to eventually what the Eagles are. It does happen, and this Bears roster is decent enough that with some good tweaks and some very good coaching, they can absolutely be a playoff team next year.
Let me end the show last minute here. How long will it take Ben Johnson to turn the Bears into a playoff team?
They've got an opportunity to make the playoffs next year or compete for a spot. I think they are a legitimate playoff team in 2 seasons.
Cassie?
I was going to say 2 seasons I'm going to give them.
Yeah, I think 2 max is the deal, and I think they can absolutely do it this coming year. There's enough there, and I believe in the staff they've put together.
All right, if you two think it's going to be 2 seasons, where will this team finish next year?
They have an opportunity to win more games than they lose. I said that last year, and they went on the 10-game losing streak. But I think this is different. This feels different. They're making good decisions, and they have a coach that is the 7th highest paid coach in the league for a reason.
So you better be competent.
Yeah, you better be good.
I'm going with, I think there's a lot of question marks elsewhere in the division where how is Dan Campbell going to replenish his
15
coordinators?
wins for the Lions.
How is J.J. McCarthy going to look
14 wins for the Vikings. 11 wins for the Packers. Where are the Bears? 9?
9 wins. I think they'll finish 3rd.
Guys, great discussion. Thanks for stopping by. That's it. We're out of here. For Cassie, David, and Matt, I'm Lou Canellis. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.